Well, greetings everyone and welcome to the Business Spotlight video series. We are excited to tell the stories about local businesses. And I'm Linda Cry with Action Coach XL Edge. And today we are going to hear from Rick Plambeck. And so first of all, Rick, thank you for taking some time out of your busy calendar to spend with us today.
Yeah, of course. Pleasure to be here. Glad to do it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Let's start with just learning a little bit about you, who you are, what is your business, maybe how long you've been in business, how you got started.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so it's I guess it's a two-part question. We've got a couple businesses, and my wife and we've had a salon business for about 20 years. So that was already established and going. And then my role in the wine and spirits side of things, I was in the wholesale side in corporate America for 16 years. So I spent the majority of my career on the other side of the business, managing portfolios and working with sales divisions and teams and whatnot. And I guess I grew up in the wholesale business, if you will. So I spent my whole career on that side, and we started the salon way back when, and my wife kind of just started in a suite and started that way. And then basically what she did is we grew that, and we outgrew that space, and we decided to move our business out further out in western side of town on 168th and Maple. So when we did that, this is where the story gets fun. Is we did that, and it was at a vacant, basically a vacant strip mall, because the business was, I mean, I guess the community hadn't grown that far west yet, and we're kind of towards Bennington, and that area is just booming now. But when we moved in, there was nothing. I mean, it was a 10 bay strip mall, and there was only three businesses in that mall, so it was literally pretty vacant, and it was a nodal development. And when we moved in there, it was kind of a lot of empty space. So we had an opportunity that was next to us at the salon, and it was all dirt. I mean, there was no build out, it was just a shell. And my wife said, "You know what? We should do something else." And I said, "Well, if we're going to do something else, we better do something we both know." so so that's kind of how the wine store started. And before I left the wholesale side, we kind of got that up and going, and we had some part timers, and I was coming in at night and kind of closing and doing the books at night. And I did that for 2.5 years before I finally pulled the plug and resigned at the wholesale level. And that's how the wine store actually got started. So the salon is next to the wine store, and we opened it up so that you can move back and forth between both locations.
Nice. So you've added some value to the salon experience with some wine spirits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the
Love it.
wine we have 8 stylists in there, and you can definitely have you can have a wine by the glass, and you can enjoy that next door while you're waiting for your hair appointment or whatever you'd like to do. And it's just a really nice intimate space where people can cross back and forth, and it creates an amazing cross merchandising experience for the consumer. But it's a one-stop shop essentially. I mean, you can get your hair done and get ready for your event and grab a bottle of wine to go.
Love it. Love it. So that experience, right, is part of
Mhm.
your marketing. It's part of the story that people are saying out there. What would be an example of what you hear? How do people describe, man, you've got to go to the salon because of this experience?
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say it's nice because when they go into the salon, they're separate entrances. I mean, going into both locations, you never know they're connected until you see the big glass door, right? So, that being said, they operate as separate businesses, but we open that door up, and then people can actually see the wine. They can see the spirits. So it creates an experience. It's not just a hair salon where you can go in, get your hair done, and while you're processing, look around. You can go, you can explore, you can see the different sides of the business, and people love that. They love to go and look and shop and feel and touch and do all that while they're waiting or while they're processing. So I think that's been a really nice complement to the salon side for sure.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What would be one of your biggest learnings as you were familiar with the salon business and then you relocated and grew it and then came up with this beautiful creative idea? What would be one of the learnings that you discovered along the way? Maybe the differences in the two different businesses, or maybe the commonalities that you've identified.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, some of the things that we learned while while opening the business. It was basically ground floor because there was nothing in that location previous to us doing all the build outs, and it was a salon prior to when we moved in. So we had to remodel that, gut that. We did the whole thing. So there was definitely some learning moments there, some teachable moments, but I definitely think, a lot of it was just hard work. I don't think there wasn't really anything that we could do differently from that standpoint, right? Because we didn't buy an existing business. We didn't, have to change out personnel. It was ground floor, and we grew it. And I think throughout that process, we learned a ton. I mean, as far as changing anything or doing anything differently, I don't know that we could have done it any better from a standpoint of, the learning part. I think we learned a ton. My wife and I grew a ton by doing that. So, I mean, looking at it now, I think the way we started slowly and grew it organically, and let the revenue keep up with our growth, I think that was a huge piece, because we didn't overspend. We have never done anything that way. We've always tried to grow it organically and build our business and wait for the revenue to catch up to everything.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mhm.
So let's talk about working in the business and working on the business. Okay.
Mhm.
So working in the business of salon, you said you have, a team of
Mhm.
salon providers, and
Yep.
then working in the business at the wine and spirits store. Um,
Mhm.
as a business owner, though, right? You
Mhm.
employ people. What do you look for on the team as you're adding them? And then what is your role to work on the business? What role do you play?
Well, one thing, and I think this has been my biggest adjustment and learning, right? We talked about doing things differently or learning. I think it's been great because coming from the corporate side, you had all those teams to do a lot of things for you, right? You had HR, you had middle level management, you had a lot of people to wear different hats. You had an IT guy, right? Where here we've had to learn all those things. I've had to get better at things that weren't my strong points so that I at least could know them well enough to either guide people through it as we hire or at least learn from them. And lately I think this has been the big adjustment I've had from going in upper management in corporate America to an owner is trying to do things in a way that, I'm not the only one doing them. I've had to hire and look for I've tried to hire off of attributes now more so than talent. That seems crazy, but I feel like if you've got somebody that's willing to work, put in the work, and they love, they have passion for what you're doing, you can teach everything else, right? It's great for somebody to have. Don't get me wrong. If you're an Excel wizard, there's some pluses to that. But I think attitude and work ethic means everything. I'm old school that way. I still feel that way. I think that's a lost art anymore. So I feel like as I hire people, I'm looking for more attributes than I am skills. We can teach that, right? But if you don't have the work ethic and you don't have, the passion for what you're doing, it's going to be a tough road.
Beautiful. So as you think about um, the attributes of work ethic and attitude
Mhm.
and the hiring process or the onboarding process, how do you go about recruiting for talent? How are you finding the talent to add to your team and then, of course, train them and onboard them?
Well, luckily, that's where the wholesale piece comes in, right? Because that was my job prior to this. So training teams, guiding sales reps, teaching them the business, whatever channel they may be in, whether it was off sale, on sale, C-store channel, all those different channels within the wine and spirit industry, I did them. Or I taught teams how to grow in that environment. So onboarding, teaching the wine and spirit skills, that's my background. So that's great. And we help reps or associates, I should say, with their education and getting them and guiding them through that process of, what test am I going to take? Is it quartermaster sommelier? Is it the WSET or WSET exams? All those different things. I've been through all those channels, which is the unique part about what I'm doing now, because most people don't go from wholesale to retail. You go from retail to wholesale, right? You go the other way. So we're in a pretty advantageous position when it comes to that. The relationships I've garnered throughout the years of the business, 22 years I've been in the wine and spirits industry. So learning it from nuts to bolts, I mean, that's been a huge advantage. So when we onboard somebody, they couldn't ask for a better place to learn, right?
So that's the other thing you're looking for, somebody who wants to learn, who wants to grow, continuous process improvement, and have fun at it, right? Make it fun.
Absolutely.
Business should give you more life, not suck the life out of you. And
Correct.
that's where we approach it as well. We got good people wanting to do good things. Let's invest in them and put processes in place and train them and give them what they need.
That's right. And that's why we did this. I always tell people, the wine and spirits industry is not heart surgery, right? We're not saving lives here, but we're making lives better sometimes. It seems to be when people come into the wine store, they're excited to come in. They want to discover new things. They want to get educated on what they're actually buying. So that's what we've really focused on with our staff and for our wine clubs and whatnot. It's a lot of it is about educating the customer, giving them an amazing experience. And then the customer service aspect of what we do is, hands down, one of our highest priorities.
Right.
So we love that.
That is the marketing. Love it. So let's talk a little bit about work-life integration. All right. I
Yeah,
don't talk about balance because I don't believe that there is necessarily a balance, because that means you're not fully present here when you need to be here or there, right? So
that's
work-life
exactly right.
integration. Um,
Yeah.
what does that look like for you? How do you make sure that you take care of you and your wife takes care of herself to give and to be able to, not only experience what the customers are experiencing, but also have time for your living?
Correct. Well, part of that is because I have a great wife, right? And she's also an entrepreneur, and she's always been an entrepreneur her entire life. I mean, she's never worked for somebody. So having that, having that, I guess, foundation for me was huge, because that's the leap of faith you take when you go from, I've got a salary, I've got retirement, I've got healthcare. When you take that leap of faith into something where I'm not leaving one job to another salary, I'm leaving an amazing position to nothing. And we had to grow a brand and take it from literally a dirt floor into something that it is now. So having her as my, I guess, my rock is a huge piece. And I think that's where people can get into trouble from a relationship standpoint. If you don't have that support system, if you don't have that person that's behind you. Now, see, she's done this before, so she's grown businesses. My wife's from Texas, so she started there, moved her business here, and started all over again. So she's done this before, and she's been through those trials and tribulations, but she knows how hard it is. And I think not having that, it's tough for some people. And first of all, it's tough for a husband and wife to work together. So if that's one thing that we've got going for us. I think we understand each other. I think her being and going through all these tough times and the struggles, I think that's been a huge piece for how we do it. And now we've gotten to the point where there is a little more work-life balance, whether it's for me, being able to go and take that time out with the kids, or from her standpoint where she can tailor her schedule a little bit more than I can, and she can actually go and spend the time with the kids. So, but again, you're talking, our store, the wine store, is now 10 years old. The salon's 20 years old. It took that long to get to this point.
Mhm.
If you think you're going to open a business in year 3 because you're going to have a lot more freedom and flexibility, I've got news for you. That's not what it's about. I mean, you have to be, same thing like we talked about earlier. We have to be passionate. You have to enjoy what you're doing, because you're going to be spending a lot of time and a lot of hours doing it.
Yes.
So that is, I think that's one of the things that people take for granted when they're in we're in corporate America, right? There's a little more work-life balance than you think, right? When you're in corporate America, when you go to ownership side, it's a whole different animal.
Yeah, it is. And then there's the opportunity, right? So I, like you, grew up in the corporate world and transitioned into growing mid-size and small businesses, and the
Yep.
joy though that comes from building something and
Correct.
owning it, right? And creating a passive income at some point as you get systems in place and people in place.
Correct.
And what you've
Correct.
really done is to say running business is kind of a rinse and repeat. So, yep, you've got a
Yeah.
salon business, you've got the foundation. Now, what do we apply to this startup here? It just happens to be, a different product, but it's still a service industry, right? You just happen to be serving wine.
At
Um,
100%. Yeah. It's still service industry. Yeah. Very, very much so. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. What would be one of your challenges that's in front of you right now? What are you trying to figure out these days?
Well, for us, being it is on our side is retail, the wine, there's a lot of challenges there, I think. And I think a lot of that has to do what's going on in the economy right now. I think the consumer's under some pressure. I think the disposable income has gotten a little sparse, and people are having to justify certain vices or certain things that wherever they need to cut back, you know. And unfortunately, it's things that they probably shouldn't cut back on. You know, a lot of them, it's the gym membership or things that health, which things that like that are a big deal.
Mhm.
But people really right now are buckling down and looking at those spends and saying, okay, maybe we don't need this. Maybe we don't need to go out and buy 6 bottles. We just need 3 bottles, right? So that's the environment we're in right now. And I mean, who would have thought, what, 3 years ago that we were going to be in the challenges that we were then? I mean, God, nobody thought, oh yeah, I'm going to go and open a wine store, and then all of a sudden COVID's going to hit, and all of a sudden they're going to shut you down. So those are things that you just couldn't plan for. You know, our salon got shut down for 7 weeks, and that being said, that was a huge, we didn't see, nobody saw that coming. So that being said, half our income was cut in half. So you think about that, and we had our daughter in April of 2020. So there was a lot of unknowns and a lot of challenges, and there was a lot of things that you notice. The people that didn't pivot aren't in business. They didn't make it through that. And again, it was just all these different things that we were adapting to that nobody had ever been through before. A lot of things that are challenges or things that we've come across, you've either experienced them at some point in your life. Well, with that, nobody had experienced that. Nobody. So nobody had ever seen that coming. So they were shutting down all non-essential businesses or anything related to healthcare. Well, cosmetology, essentially, since we're regulated by the health department, it was deemed non-essential, but just like dentist offices were. So we didn't have an option. They locked our doors.
Mhm.
So that was a huge, huge adjustment. So luckily, the wine and spirit side of the business had picked up because everybody was staying home,
Mhm.
right? And everybody was exploring and became a craft cocktail wizard. But at the same time, these were all things that we had. How do you plan for that?
Mhm.
I mean, I opened a warehouse during that time. We had an e-commerce site being built at that time, not because of COVID. We had already started building it, but it wasn't ready. But I said, man, the minute COVID hit, they were very close. And as soon as it got done, I said, let's turn it on, and we drank out of a fire hose. So that's how we handled it. So again, there's a lot of challenges that you don't see. And right now, the new challenge is the economy. I mean, things are just all over the board. It's been a roller coaster. I mean, we went from COVID, which you couldn't really look at you couldn't look at those numbers and go, oh yeah, this is going to happen every year.
Yeah.
Those spikes were not reality. So now we're at the other end of it. Now we're on the backside of the hill and going, okay, now how do we adapt to this? Because we rode a high train there for about a year and a half to 2 years, and now it's coming back. There's some normality coming back, but it's also going the other way because the consumer is under a lot of pressure. So I would say that's kind of what we're fighting right now. And we fought the logistics channel too,
Sure.
because all the shipping stopped. Well, you got to get wine from California or internationally here. A lot of it's on the water. All the DI stuff, was here, but still there was a lot of stuff you just couldn't get. So I knew this going into it from my wholesale background. So I was ordering a lot heavier than I normally would to make sure I had product because I saw the logistics struggle. So we ended up okay. But again, not having that wholesale channel background, I mean, I don't know how that would have fared,
Yeah.
you know.
And you do figure it out, right? You do find a way, and it's with planning and using your transferable skills, just as you
Mhm.
described. Now, I could
Yep.
probably argue that a good a glass of Pinot Noir is heart healthy and would be very essential to my lifestyle, right? So
That's
there's
correct. Yeah.
There you go. So there's some creative ways of even, thinking about how can you use your marketing skill sets and to make the case to create the demand for folks and be wise about where they're spending their dollars, no doubt. Beautiful. If you
Absolutely.
would have advice for your younger self, Rick, what might advice be to your younger self, whether it's business related or personal development along your journey? What would that be?
Don't be scared to take chances. I think that's a big one, and that leads me into, we obviously you heard a little bit about the growth of where we've came from and our businesses now, but then we finally got to a point where we can take a breath in our business and where our numbers are. But now we just did it again, and we bought 2.5 acres of commercial ground 2.5 years ago, and we're in the development side. So now we have a property company, and we're getting ready to develop our building, and we're going to be well, we've been working on that. So we're going to be building our own building here, freestanding here in the next year and a half. So now we're into the property side of the business. So another thing that I need to learn, and I'm working through those, and building and developing ground and land for commercial use is never something I've ever done. So, but that's what I would tell myself. Don't be scared to take chances and risks, because I think with risk comes reward, but you have to be willing to do it. But if you have the proper planning and you have the work ethic to do it, I would say don't be scared to take chances. You got to do it.
Beautiful. I can hear that you have emerged stronger and even wiser from those experiences. So we always do grow during those. It's hard to feel that during the middle of it all. Though lifelong learning, continuous learning is clearly something that energizes you and interests you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always looking to gain or learn and get new knowledge from, whether that's mentors or people that I look up to, or people that have been there and done it. I've never been one to know everything, so I'm always big in extracting information. I love to be a sponge. I pick brains of people that have been there and done it and have been successful. So those are the folks that I like to look to when I'm having a rough patch, or things like that, where you come across something now in real estate that I've never had to deal with before. So that's what I would say.
Beautiful. And all of that while you're raising some good humans.
That's correct. Yes.
I love
I've
that.
got a 3 and a 6-year-old, and yeah, my daughter she's my little honey badger. She is something. And my son, he's great. He's mom's helper, and he does a great job. So we've got T-ball going on now, and coach pitch, I should say, and then getting ready to get her in some things. So yeah.
So a theme that I'm hearing is time mastery, self-mastery, so that those important things that you value in life, you fit them right into what you're doing as you're growing businesses and opening up new spaces and places.
Correct. And I, like I said, if the only thing I could say is, I mean, I get better every day at that. I'm still not great. I have to learn to turn it off. I mean, it's really hard for me right now. So I think that's every, I guess, entrepreneur story or business owner story. I mean, it's very hard to turn that switch off, and I have to get better at that. I'm still trying to get better at that, but my wife, she's great. Like I said, I think she has mastered that side of it, which I have not, but I think that's, another decade of the business she's already had before me. So
yeah, well, it's in your blood, no doubt. Great things will continue to happen. So we clearly wish you the best. Now, how do we find the salon and the libations? How do we find you?
correct. We're on all the social media sites. I mean, we're on Instagram, Facebook. We were on Twitter, but since that changed, we kind of went a different direction. Our website's amazing. It's a full-blown e-commerce site. Our wine clubs, everything's on there. So www.oldvinewineomaha.com, and Facebook basically is just Old Vine Wine and Spirits Omaha. So, and that they will cross over to Instagram, so they can find us everywhere basically. And the salon is the same essentially. So ElyEya Salon, it stands for his and hers in Spanish. My wife is Hispanic, so it's amazing. So yeah, she's got a great network and unbelievable clientele. So,
Love
but
it.
yeah, easy fun.
Great story. Great story, Rick. Thanks for sharing your time with us, your insight, your wisdom, and we will just have to check out those facilities, no doubt.
I would love to have you guys. I'd love to show you around. So thank you too, Linda.
All right. Thank you.